Hi, welcome to the Carnivore Stories podcast with me, Alyssa Grubner. The carnivore way of eating completely transformed my life, and it's stories just like the ones you'll hear on this podcast that kept me going every step of the way. I hope you're ready to hear an inspirational carnivore story. I know I am, but first, let me tell you about the Meat-tastic t-shirts I have for sale on my spring store. It's a great opportunity for you to become a walking billboard if that's what you're into. And it's a great opportunity for you to support your new favorite podcast. You can find a link to the spring store in my bio on Instagram at Meat, M-E-A-T, Mrs. M-R-S, Grubs, G-R-U-B-S. I'll also put a link to the store in this video's description on YouTube. So check it out and get some carnivore swag. Welcome to episode 31 of the Carnivore Stories podcast. Today I'm joined by Bradley Marshall. He's a musician from Australia who battled for years with a incurable autoimmune disease until he finally gave up on Western medicine and found healing through a meat-only diet. Thank you so much for being here today, Bradley.
It's a pleasure, Alyssa.
Yes. So let's start off with you telling everyone about your story. Take as much time as you need, about what brought you to carnivore, how you found carnivore, and when was that?
Yeah, so I've always been burdened with eczema. Like from the moment I was 3 months old, my mum was telling me how, in retrospect, there's eczema that came up since 3 months. So during primary school, high school, I've always been dealing with comments like, I have memories of playing with my friends and then older kids come up to me and say, like, not in a bullying fashion, but just like, wow, what's wrong with your face? There's all red marks there, and just kids being curious. So I've always noticed, I've always known that I was kind of, it quickly separated me from everyone else, and so I quickly felt different. So it's always been there my whole life, but it was manageable until the last 3 years. So starting in 2020, it got really, really debilitating. To the point where I couldn't leave my bed. I had to quit my job because I'm a piano teacher. My job is teaching piano, and I couldn't reach the octave anymore on the piano. And all the kids were saying, "What's up with your fingers? If I play the piano and practice as much as you, will my fingers end up looking like that?" And I had to reassure them, "No, I've got a debilitating skin illness." And if you go on my Instagram, you can see all the pictures of how bad it is. And it got to the point where my passion is music, but I was thinking, what if I'm not able to be a pianist anymore? Like, what if I have to change careers completely and become, like, I was thinking of changing into computer programming or something completely different. Computer programming, because I wouldn't have to need to socialize with people, because I could just stay home and out of the limelight. I could just stay in the shadows, because, it was not just debilitating in pain and sleeplessness, but it was also, there's a level of insecurity. You don't want to go out and face people when the first thing people say to you is, "What's wrong with your face?" Or, "You look really tired," or, "You look awful." And it gets to you. And I just thought, I'm a musician, I'm a performer, and I love being in the limelight, but if I have to live like this, I might have to change careers to something where I'm just completely out of the limelight, just in the shadows. But so basically, in that 3-year period, it was very hard mentally, and going through it, I wasn't sure how long it would last. Like, there was periods where I was thinking, this might be for the rest of my life. Like, I might be suffering like this for the next 60 years, and every single year it's going to get worse and worse until I'm old and I'm by myself and I can't even, things that go through your head, like, who's gonna fall in love with me when I'm in this kind of condition? But people still see the good in the worst cases. There was this person who was talking to me for a while, and and she never really saw the eczema as a problem. And she said, I really care for you. And so, and there's a lot of people, like, I mean, like, even if I was in a debilitating condition, there's still chance for life. So I'm not gonna like cut that off completely. If you do have eczema out there, you can still find life. But I was in a place where I was really upset with my life. I really had nothing left beyond just sitting in my room. I was lying in my bed, and the moment I moved my neck, the moment I moved my arms, it was just like being burnt alive. And so, yeah, I didn't know how long that would last. And so I said to myself, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to stay here. I can't just stay here in this. This is not my life. I don't believe that there is no cure for eczema. I think I can find something. I said to myself, you know, there is no cure because people are just relying on creams. People are just relying on the drugs, the biologics, the antibiotics, the steroids. And I don't think this is the right thing. I think this is a transient solution, which it really is. It stops the eczema temporarily, but not long term.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, you know what? I'm going to try to find something that addresses the root cause. And I started looking into so many different things. I said, most people are not willing to try the things that I'm going to try. I'm going to go to the edge and back to see if I can find a solution. So the first thing I did was about a year ago. So I only started the carnivore diet 163 days ago. So a year ago, I started cold water therapy. So in Melbourne, where I live in Australia, it's right at the bottom, and it's really cold most of the time. And you only get right now it's the second day of summer, and it's still about, I'm not sure how it converts to Fahrenheit, but it's about 16 degrees, which is cold. The water is still about 11 degrees Celsius. So, I mean, it does get warm, don't get me wrong. Like, it gets to about 40 degrees sometimes, but it is freezing in the water. So around September and during winter, I was diving right into the cold water because I was finding stories online, because I didn't want to accept the standard Western medicine, there's no cure. I said, I can't live like that. I need hope. I need to find a solution. And I said in other podcasts, I've got this delusional quality, for lack of a better word, that I just don't believe that if there's a problem, I always believe there's a solution. I don't believe that eczema is incurable. I just think that probably medicine needs to catch up, or that there is solutions out there and they're just not being talked about, which obviously there is. So the first thing I did was I started looking up these cases online of people who go and use cold water therapy and they have debilitating autoimmune conditions. For example, they have, I have to fact check this, but I know that there was a story of in where I live in Melbourne, there's a group called the Icebergers, of people who dive into cold water every single day. And I think one of them had nerve damage, really bad nerve damage, to the point where it could have been polio, but I think it was really bad nerve damage to the point where he couldn't walk properly and he had a permanent limp. And so he went into the ocean every single morning, and after coming out of the ocean, he would walk normally for about an hour or half hour. So I saw that and I said, wow, this is resetting your nervous system. So I thought to myself, maybe I have a chance if I could cure myself by just diving into freezing water. I mean, this is the reason why eczema is incurable, because people aren't willing to do that. They're not willing to go to the edge and back. It's easier just to take a quick fix pill. I mean, I think everyone knows this. It's like if you have to have life-changing, if you have to change your life in the form of do exercise, diet, and sauna, whatever, completely life-changing, or just take a pill, a lot of people just opt for the pill. So I said to myself, yeah, I'm going to start diving into the ocean. So that's what I started doing, that because there's so much health benefits of like, it replenishes your skin with the salt, and it resets your vagus nerve, and it reduces inflammation. So that's the first thing I started doing. But obviously it wasn't enough. It's not just one thing. It has to be holistic health. So I said, you know what? I was already aware of diet. Like, throughout my high school days, I noticed when I ate McDonald's, for example, or any fried foods, the actual doctors would say to me, there's no correlation between food and skin. And I said, that's, at about 13, I said, that's not true. I actually don't believe that, because I know as soon as I eat McDonald's, it flares my skin up. So how do you explain this? They said, oh, it's just coincidental, or it's just your mind. The mind is very powerful with placebos and nocebos, they were saying. And I said, that's just not true. I don't believe that. So I was already aware of diet, but I didn't know how sensitive my body was. I mean, like up till 3 years ago, I really could eat most things, apart from the fried foods. So it was just 3 years ago. And I've got all of these, like I'm not exactly sure what caused it 3 years ago. I'm leaning toward topical steroid withdrawal. I mean, at the time, I wasn't sure what it could have been because in Melbourne, we just started a lockdown, which lasted 200 days. We in Australia, we had the longest lockdown in the world in Melbourne. So I was thinking maybe the fact that I'm in my house for so long and I'm allergic to dust, perhaps, and it's getting worse because of this. So there's a lot of factors. It could be all of the above.
It must have been
Uh,
stressful too.
yeah, stressful too. But, it was stressful, but in terms of like I've had very stressful situations right through my life, like in VCE. So I've always been one to really deal with stress well. So I was aware that it could be
Okay.
stress, but I think because it was so drastically increased, I said it can't be stress. It has to be something on top of stress. So that's
Mm.
why I assumed it could have been the dust. It could have been lack of vitamin D because we couldn't travel outside our house further than 5 kilometers. So I tried to get as much vitamin D as possible by walking, but we were only allowed to do that for an hour. We had like an hour restriction of going outside your house. Another thing, it could have been COVID itself. Like COVID flares up the immune system, so I was thinking it could have been that. And then a lot of people say, no, it's not this. But I was thinking at the same time in March 2020, it's exactly the time my eczema flared up, is they had an increase in EMF because the 4G became
Mhm.
5G. And like a lot of people say, oh, it's just a conspiracy. But, I was willing to think about every single avenue. I didn't
Yeah.
rule anything off the tables. But what I think it really was is topical steroid withdrawal. So this is another large topic, but just to quickly summarize it, uh, doctors recommend steroids right from the very start. They say, this is a really quick solution. It will clean you up. So basically, your adrenal glands release its own form of steroids in the form of cortisol, and your skin naturally produces that. But the thing is, if you use artificial cortisol in the form of the steroids they give you, then your skin no longer produces its own. It just relies on the artificial steroid. And then what happens is it stops working because it's just like a recreational drug. Say, I don't know, if you're on heroin, for example, uh, after a while, you need a stronger dose and a stronger dose and a higher dose because it stops working. So the same thing happens with the steroids. You get dependent on it, and then the skin is tolerating it, grows a resistance to it, so you need a stronger dose, until eventually you get to the strongest dose, and then you can't go any higher than that. And so your body literally is forced into withdrawal. And I was noticing that. So when I was about 4 years ago, I was noticing when I was using the steroids, because I've been using steroids for 20 years, I was noticing it wasn't as powerful as it used to be. Like it wasn't controlling it. And I was thinking, if this is not even going to control it, I'm just going to stop using it completely. And so that happened around 3 years ago as well. I mean, there's pictures of me in 2019 where I went to America in a holiday, and my skin looks great. I mean, a lot of people were asking me questions online, like they questioned my story. They said, a lot of your pictures before you look fine. But the thing is, like I'm very careful with what I post. I mean, I was keeping it secret. I didn't want to reveal that I have eczema, and so most of the pictures I look fine because I'm doing skivvies that cover my neck if there's eczema there, or I'm waiting till the moment I'm actually on antibiotics, and when I'm on antibiotics and prednisolone tablets, for example, my skin clears up within 2 weeks, and so there's a period of just relief where everything's cured, and I look as well as I do now, except now I'm actually holistically completely healthy versus a transient solution where you're just masking the pain and masking the illness for about 2 weeks. That's basically what they do. They just suppress. They don't actually heal at all. It's just masking. So in that period of the
Mhm.
2 weeks, what I'd do is I'd film like a lifetime of work, like a year's worth of of me playing the piano, like every single day of that. I'm very like, I don't know, highly motivated, and I love doing things and maximizing my time efficiency. And so I knew that I had a window of about 2 weeks before my eczema would return. And so what I did in those 2 weeks for the last 3 years, whenever I went on these antibiotics, because it was like a yearly thing, like it would get so bad that I can't take it anymore. And so I'd have to take antibiotics to heal it up. And then but the thing is, once you do that, it actually works less and less, just like the steroids. And it gets worse and worse the more time you depend on it. And so it really isn't a permanent solution. It's just really transient. And unfortunately, that is all that Western medicine offers. That, and then a new biologic they call Dupixent, which is another whole topic I'll get into later. Unfortunately, in Australia, it's only $40 with a subsidy, but people in America are paying up to $50,000 for it a year.
My goodness.
Yeah. So yeah, and so what I used to do is in these 2 week periods, I'd be filming myself playing like as much piano covers as possible, even filming myself doing little short courses. And then people would say, your fingers look fine. And of course it looks fine, because that was the 2 week period I was on the drugs. And I would post that. I'd have enough content to sort of last me like 3 months to 6 months. And so I would post it, and people would assume my fingers look okay. But the thing is, that was the 2 week period. So basically 160 days ago, I stumbled upon the carnivore diet. I was at the gym, and I was always listening to like Jordan Peterson and his daughter Michaela Peterson. I was aware that both of them are on the carnivore diet, and someone recommended to me in the gym. They said, I had eczema too, like you, and I didn't know how severe his eczema was. I just assumed at the time that it was just, I don't know. I thought most people's eczema wasn't that bad, and because my if you see the pictures of my eczema, it's actually really quite debilitating. It's a really severe case of eczema, and so I just assumed that maybe they had a mild case of eczema and it cured them of the carnivore diet. So I was skeptical. But he said to me, why don't you just try for 30 days, just try eating nothing but meat, and I tell you it'll cure you. And this was a guy at the gym. And I said, okay. So I started doing some research into it, and I found Michaela Peterson, like in depth. I found her story, and then like I was aware of her before, but I really started researching her story and realizing how bad it was, and how she was taking the same drugs that I was taking. I wasn't taking methotrexate, but that is also an eczema drug, a biologic. So I wasn't taking it, but it's also offered to eczema patients. And so I found Paul Saladino's book, The Carnivore Code. I went online and I was looking up all these people who have cured themselves of eczema. So I found all these doctors. I really wanted to make sure that if I'm going to try this carnivore diet, I mean, there's a lot of questions, right, that I had, and most people have, like, am I going to become constipated? Am I going to have colon cancer? Am I going to have kidney damage, heart disease, forgot the word, osteosclerosis, like the fattening of the heart, with the LDL levels going up? Like, I just wasn't sure.
Yeah.
And so I did research. I really wanted to, like, my background is, I've got a degree in science, and so I really wanted to approach it scientifically, and I wanted to make sure my health was the best it could be. So I found Paul Saladino, and I read his book, The Carnivore Code, which is amazing, just mind-blowing. It just, any qualms I had going into the carnivore diet was completely cured, after reading The Carnivore Diet, because it just talks about every single avenue and every single shadow of every room as a metaphor, or any single aspect of the carnivore diet that you question. He answers it and addresses every single one, from constipation to heart disease, kidney damage, everything. And he proves it. That he even questions, I'm not sure if it's the World Health Organization, WHO. There's an article there with clinical studies that he provides saying the World Health Organization's study is based on problematic and shady, that's the term he used, shady science, which is like, it's highly questionable. And that's not his words, that was a clinical study's words. So there's actually, Sean Baker just recently released a post of this study that really questions the World Health Organization, because this is where a lot of the propaganda is coming from. A lot of people really believe that the carnivore diet is terrible for you, that it causes cancer, because of this false misinformation that they've heard that it increases your risk of cancer. And I think from what I read from the top of my head, I can't remember if it's exactly right, but it increases your risk by 7% every single day that you're on the carnivore diet. I have to fact check that, but that's what Paul Saladino said in his book. And so that is from the World Health Organization. That's what people are believing. And so that's why even me, when I grew up, my parents were saying to me, don't eat meat all the time. Just have it twice a week if you must, because it will cause cancer. And it's just not true. Not true at all. I mean, like, I'm yet to get blood. I'm a bit like Sean Baker. When I was watching his podcast with Joe Rogan, he said, I'm not really interested in getting blood tests. I am interested. I just haven't done it yet. And I will be soon. But just from the way I look, I mean, I've completely healed myself of eczema completely. There's not one bit of eczema left, like tiny dots in small places, but compared to how I was, it is like 99.99% cured. And if that's the case, I mean, before I was in hospital, and I mean, like, I was, to just give you context, like, I was always on antibiotics and prednisolone tablets and steroids and oral steroids. And so I knew that every single time I do this, it helps transiently. It helps for 2 weeks, but then it will get worse in the long run. So the more I use it, the more it's just destroying me long term. So I really was averse to trying it. I said, I don't want to go back to the hospital and do these things. And so I was resistant and I was holding it off. And it got to the point, though, that my body was so bad. I remember lying in bed thinking, I'm dying. This is terrible. And I went into the hospital because I was in so much pain. And the doctor said, it's lucky you came. It's good that you came in, not lucky. It's good that you came in, because if you don't start the antibiotics right now, you would have died in the next week, because your blood is already septic. So, I mean, this is what I was dealing with at that point in time. So, yeah, I knew that there had to be a solution greater than what Western medicine provides. And that's when I stumbled across the carnivore diet and really healed myself holistically from the inside out. Yeah.
That is amazing. And what a nightmare. What an absolute nightmare you had to go through. But I mean, you're awakened from this nightmare now, and it's amazing. It really is. I've seen the pictures, and I've seen eczema before, but definitely never like how yours was. I mean, it was really severe. And I know I can imagine working with kids. Kids are brutally honest, and and they'll let things that other people might be thinking but don't say. And so I can only imagine how that was, to have them point that out. Um, so what was your diet like before you decided to give carnivore a try?
Mm. I'll answer that. Just touch on the kids thing. Like, as a teacher, yeah, it's you get all types of comments. I mean, like, I remember this kid, and I was walking in, and he said, "Oh, your eczema's gotten worse." I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Thank you, Dr. Nick." No,
Hmm.
but recently it's good. I mean, like, recently I've been teaching, and this kid was saying to me, "Your hands aren't red anymore," and I said, "Yeah." That's right, isn't it great? um,
Yeah.
yeah, kids are beautiful in their honesty, and there's memories I have of walking. This is not a kid though, but there's a memory of me walking. Actually, and an adult was commenting when I was walking barefoot on the beach, and my foot was just red and weeping, and I heard the comment. She just sort of muttered to herself, to a friend, "Oh, that's gross. Look at that." And so these things like stick with you. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm not gonna be this person. Why do I have to live like this for the rest of my life? I'm gonna find a solution. And so, yeah, I did. So in terms of what I was eating before, I was having, like, I'm half Filipino, half Australian. So I was eating rice every day. And I was eating, like, which is a grain, which I cut out completely, because I thought that rice was relatively harmless. And I was even eating brown rice. And some people, I think Dr. Gundry is saying that white rice is better than brown rice. I have to double check that. But it got to the
Mm-hmm.
point where I'm like, I don't know if rice, period, is good for me because it's a grain. So I cut that out. I cut out dairy. So before I was having a pretty standard diet. Like I would limit eating fast foods, but like I'm not sure if in America if you have grilled or do you have grilled? Like grilled burgers and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I
You
used to
mean
love eating.
like,
No. It's
or
actually
I mean,
a company called Grilled. It's
okay,
like Burger
okay,
King.
no,
Okay. Well,
no,
in Australia,
no,
it's it's
we
called
don't have.
like Burger King and so in Australia they call it grilled and sombrero and like Nando's. I don't know if you have that over there, but I used to love eating these foods, and I'd have them like not every day, but at university, like after a lecture, like it would be my leisure and my pleasure to go down there and just have a burrito. Even just in the last few weeks, I mean, cravings do uh, subside after a while, and they kind of have. But there's moments where I walk past a sombrero, and I remember in the past, like rewarding myself after a lecture. Like, oh, I remember I used to have these beautiful burritos with avocado and corn and all of these toppings, and it's just garlic sauce, and
Hmm.
and you get cravings for a split second, but then I remember, it's not worth it. There's nothing tastes better than having perfect health. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I was having a pretty standard diet. Like I was already monitoring my what I ate and my intake. So I thought that vegetables were healthy, and so I was eating so much vegetables and greens and all of this uh, fruit. I still have select fruit today, but mainly it's carnivore based. Uh, yeah, and I'm sure all your viewers know how much vegetables how bad they are for you in terms of uh, their defense mechanisms. They have oxalates and salicylates and polyphenols in them, which is their
Yes.
evolutionary way of attacking you, so you don't eat them. And on top of that, you have the fungicides and the herbicides. And I mean, I'd be interested to try some more fruits. I mean, I've got a very restricted palette of fruits that I eat, like because they're keto friendly. So I'm always eating
Hmm.
like low carbohydrates. As I think that affects me much less than things like citrus, like oranges and pineapples really trigger me. So I don't eat all fruits. I just eat a very small subset of fruits. Like basically, I could count them. There's about four of them, like apple, uh, avocado, and coconut. That's literally most of the fruits I
Okay.
eat, and sometimes raw honey. But again, these are on occasion. Like every day, it's just mainly meat, and I only have the fruit as a variation because sticking to meat is at times mentally monotonous. And so, I mean, even in the meat, within meat itself, like I'm only eating, I don't eat pork and I don't eat chicken, I don't eat fish. Like it's not really exactly carnivore. I don't have cheese, I don't have dairy, I don't have butter. I cook meat with meat. I cook it with ruminant fat. And so it's really the lion diet, which is exactly what Michaela Peterson's on. So just lamb and just cow, ruminant meat, and a lot of organs. So I mix it up with those items. And so whenever I get tired of eating the same thing, I just change it up. So I have organs one day because like eating liver is very like rubbery. It's like a jelly, and I like cooking it very medium rare or like even almost um,
Hmm.
raw almost because it tastes. I love the taste of it like not cooked because it's like a jelly. I mean, I find
Did
it
you grow
delicious.
up eating, did you grow up eating organs?
Yeah, well, I grew up eating chicken liver, but not cow liver. And so, yeah, there's such a
Okay.
variety of taste difference, is basically what I'm saying, between liver, kidneys, heart, and brain. And I mean, like, I save money that way too. I mean, like, it's not very palatable to most people. And so, there's not much demand for the organs. And so, in Australia, I'm not sure exactly how it translates, but it's $14 in Australia for like a small Scotch fillet steak and only $3 for
Mm.
organs when I can get exactly the same in, density and size of meal, and I can feel full, and it tastes exactly the same. It's just psychologically unappealing to most people, and so it's so cheap, and so that's my way of
Yeah.
sort of saving money. But yeah, that's how I
So help
survive my
me out.
vegetarian.
So you said a Scotch fillet. I've
Sorry,
I've
Scotch
heard
fillet.
this before. I've heard this before, and I remember someone was saying this was a what we would call a ribeye here in the States, maybe, or
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
is it a
Ribeye.
fattier cut?
It's like
Okay,
it's a high end cut. So like a ribeye we have here too. It's not exactly a ribeye. It's just the high end cut of the cow. Yeah. Like do you have a
okay,
porterhouse steak
okay.
there?
Yes,
Yeah, it's like a
yeah, and
porterhouse
so that
steak.
has
Yeah.
okay, okay, and it has like the fillet, and then it has the strip and the T-bone in
Yeah.
the middle, right?
Well, no, it doesn't have a
Okay,
T-bone. It's like a porterhouse steak. So it's just like a slab, like a kind of like a burger in a sense, but just like a circular slab of meat that is very tender
okay,
and
like okay, okay. I know what this is called. Filet mignon. That's what we would call it
oh, really?
here.
What did you say? Sorry, filet
Filet mignon.
mignon. Oh, okay, interesting.
Yes. Yes, I'm pretty sure that's something really cool. I feel like somebody should do like, okay, if you're carnivore in other parts of the world, if you ask
Yeah,
for this is what you're gonna get, you know?
no, no, literally. Like one of
Wow.
my thoughts is when I travel overseas, I'm not going to be eating out, unfortunately, because a lot of the stores. I mean, Michaela Peterson doesn't eat out either, because a lot of the restaurants they cook with canola oil and vegetable oil and seed
Hmm.
oils. And so it triggers me and it triggers her and triggers people who are very sensitive. And so I probably won't be eating out. I probably will be going to the butcher and trying to translate the foods that I'm having here in Australia. So it's good that I know that now.
Wow. Um, so did you have any issues adapting to carnivore? Like, did you get any type of keto flu, any diarrhea, anything like
Yeah,
that?
good question. Um, so when I started, I mean, I didn't change very drastically. It was a very slow process of eliminating foods very slowly with time. So in the past 3 years, like I was already eliminating many food groups. So I started by cutting out gluten, and then I removed grains and bread and dairy, and then like this is periods of time that I'm jumping across. Like this is a slow removal of all these food items. And so then I removed vegetables because I thought I was already allergic to legumes. I said, what if it's all vegetables? So I cut that out. And then it got to the point. So I was just having basically fruit and then, yeah, just mainly fruit and select like chicken I was having. And then someone said to me, maybe it's the chicken. Maybe you're allergic to chicken. I mean, chicken's fed a lot of grains and soy, and so that's what I was allergic to. And so basically, what the chicken eats is what you're eating. And so I said, that's right. But that's when I found the carnivore diet, and I said, this is really powerful. There's so many people with eczema that have cured themselves, and that's what really like woke me up and was like a slap to the face. Is wow, these people, these authors online who are writing these blogs all have eczema, and they're writing how it cured them. So I just got to try this, and so yeah, that's when I started the carnivore diet, and yeah, cured me up completely.
Um, how long into the carnivore diet did you notice like, hey, this is actually working for me? It's actually working, taking the eczema away.
Yeah, so it took me about 7 to 8 weeks on the carnivore diet, and I could see huge improvements. I mean, even now, like when I say I'm healed, I mean, like my mum doesn't like me saying the word cured because it's never really cured in a sense. As long as I'm on the carnivore diet, it's cured. As long as I'm maintaining my exercise and going into the ocean every day. Like the moment I stop, I can
Mhm.
feel the remission. It's like bodybuilders. It's the moments you stop exercising, you can feel your muscles start to wither away. And so it's the same thing with me. So I guess after about 7 weeks, I mean, I'm still healing to this day. I mean, I'm I'm curious to see what will happen in the next. I've only been on the carnivore diet for 6 months, so I'm curious to see what would happen the next 6 months and then the next 6 months after that, because a lot of people have been contacting me saying that in 5 years' time, they have the same story as me. Like they went on the carnivore diet and it cured their gut, and so it takes about 2 years or to a year for the gut to really heal itself and reset itself. And then after 5 years' time, they said you might be able to eat many things that you used to be able to eat. So I don't know if I'm going to go completely back to eating everything. Like, I'm not really interested in eating cake anymore, or things that are very triggering. But like, I wouldn't mind reintroducing some foods like I don't know, like mangoes and even some maybe dark chocolate and stuff like that. But you know,
Mhm.
that's a long time in the future. But yeah, to answer your question, around 7 weeks in, I started noticing major differences. Like, I could start sleeping again, because sleeping is a massive thing. Like, even today, like, I still have a level of, the only way I can describe it is PTSD, because going to sleep was such a traumatic experience, because I knew that I wouldn't be able to sleep at all. It would be 8 hours of just, like, even thinking about the bed, it just felt like this prison, this coffin, if you will, of just going in there, and it's just like crawling with ants, and metaphorically, and
Mhm.
it just was really unpleasant. And so just thinking about sleeping would just make me feel like I'm going haywire. Like, I just would react and feel a level of anxiety of, damn, I need to go to sleep now. Oh, it's the worst part of the day, because the cortisol level drops as well when it's night for me. And so it's always, I think, I'm not sure if this is a generalization, but from what I've read of a lot of eczema patients, it gets a lot worse. So it's not just me, at night.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, even to this day, I mean, I like to sleep on I like on the couch, which is leather, because the leather doesn't irritate me. And I mean, the bed sheets, which are just normal sheets, I have like a dust mite protector as well, but it's just it just triggers my skin a lot. And so leather is just mentally appealing, even though it's healed at this point in time, because there's a level of like PTSD there, for lack of a better description.
Wow. Um, okay, so I saw a post on your Instagram where you were just busting out these pull-ups, okay? And it's very impressive. So you work out.
Yeah.
How long has that been like a lifelong thing that you've been pretty active?
Yeah, I think I started working out when I was around 15, 16. So about 10
Okay.
years, 26 now. And I mean, like, I've always done, like, there's pictures of me when I was 21 and I was doing this show, this musical. And for people who love music theatre, it was Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, and by Andrew Lloyd Webber, and it was just a community theatre project, but it really mattered a lot to me. And so I wanted to be in amazing shape for it, because the whole musical, it's set in Egypt, and I'm basically shirtless on stage the whole time.
Okay.
So I was doing CrossFit, I was climbing ropes and doing chin-ups, and I was massive. Like, I was in really big shape. Um, but like recently, like on the carnivore diet, I'm not as big and bulky as I used to be. I'm very lean, because like I'm virtually having no carbohydrates at all. And yeah, like my dad's like, wow, look at, not to like gloat or anything, but my dad was just like, wow, I wish I had a six pack like that. And like, I mean, like,
Yeah.
I'm not even working out my abs that much, to be honest. Honestly, it's all the diet, because there's no fat I mean, sorry, it's all fat and there's no carbohydrates at all going in. And so I'm just as lean as I've ever been. And in terms of working out, like, at times it's hard to sleep even now, because there's a remnant of, even though I'm cured, so to speak, and healed, there's still like kind of ghost pains that come and go. It's like when, and it's scientifically documented as well. So, and I forget the name for it, but people who say have their foot cut off or their leg cut off, they can still feel remnants of their foot still there. And so
Yes.
my nervous system was under attack and haywire for the last 3 years. And so now that it's kind of healing and healed, and it's resetting, there's a period of time where I could only describe it as like these pinpricks on my body that are still emerging, and sometimes it's still difficult to sleep with those pinpricks. I mean, so when I say I'm healed, there's still problems that I have to face. I mean, even last night, and then for the past 4 nights, I've been working out every single night, and I work out quite a lot because it's my solution to not being able to sleep. And if I get really frustrated because it's painful, I mean, even though I'm healed right now, it's healed, my skin's healed, but I'm still in some level of pain because of these ghost sort of nervous system pinpricks that are happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, the only way through it is what I was doing when I was in such pain with my eczema, when it was really bad. I still carry on to this day. I'm still working out. So the last 4 days, and indefinitely for like the last year and 3 years really, and since I was like 15, I've been working out 3 times a week, but recently it's been like every day. And so in that
Okay.
video when I was doing chin-ups, it's like yeah, I'm frustrated because I can't sleep, and there's so much eczema flaring up, and I take out my anger on the weights. And the moment I start working out, an hour into it, all these endorphins start being released naturally in my body, and the itch subsides. And so, a lot of people online in these eczema communities, they say, what's the best way to deal with itch? What cream should I use? And there's a lot of creams out there, like Aveeno, for example, that I used to experiment with too. Like when I'm itchy, I'd apply that on, and it's like it kind of numbs the surface of the skin and it feels good. But really, it doesn't help long term. It actually I found it makes it worse. I mean, other people might disagree, but I found after applying it, it actually gets a lot worse later on. And so I'm not using any creams right now. Like I've gone completely cold turkey, and I'm really proud to say that. Like I'm not using any Elidel. I'm not using any steroids. Elidel is a cream that I use on my face because steroids is very strong. And if I used it on my face, it would just destroy the skin on the face, which is very thin, much thinner than the body. But the thing is, I mean, just to quickly, I'm talking about a lot of topics at once, but like to quickly address Elidel, I was looking up online the side effects of using Elidel for long-term use of it. And they say online, please don't use this for longer than a year, because there is clinical studies that prove that it is linked to skin cancer and lymphoma. And I've been using it for 20
My
years.
goodness.
And the doctors just constantly keep prescribing it, and they say, it's rare, it's not going to happen, it's fine, just keep on using it. I mean, I don't know if it's negligence or they're getting commission out of it, so there's an incentive for them. But it's just really disappointing that they would advocate that for 20 years and not even tell me that there's a side effect of skin cancer and lymphoma. And on top of that, I was doing UV treatment, and I looked that up too, and it says Elidel causes skin cancer and lymphoma alone, but please do not use this in conjunction with UV treatment because it exacerbates skin cancer and lymphoma even more. And the doctor said, oh, it's fine, it's rare. I mean, yeah, you could say it's rare, but 1 in 2 people die of cancer in their lifetime. And 1 in 5 have autoimmune disease, and it's increasing at a rate of 3 to 9% per year. I mean, there's an elephant in the room here. And you can't call me crazy for saying it, So that's why I'm very happy today that I've completely gone cold turkey on every single medicine, and I've completely healed myself naturally, and I'm using natural holistic health, not Western medicine, which is transient. I mean, I've given Western medicine 20 years. I've given it a chance, I've given it its time.
Mm-hmm.
20 years of experimenting with all of this different procedures that they give me is enough time to really look through and say, and to analyze it and say, this doesn't work. I'm not going to use this anymore. You've had your chance. I'm moving on now. I'm going to take my health into my own hands. And it has worked. And honestly,
Yeah.
there's so many people out there with eczema who say, why are people vilifying steroids? It works. I can only say from my experience, like I'm not a medical practitioner, I'm not a medical expert, but these steroids are dangerous, and it will work for you in the short term, but it will really mess you up long term. And I would highly recommend getting off it as soon as possible. And really just trying to tackle diet and holistic health. I mean, these 4 tenets that I'm practicing all the time, going into the ocean, sauna, carnivore diet, and what's the last one? Sauna, carnivore diet, ocean, and look up.
Exercise.
Exercise. Yes, exercise. Yeah, those four things. As long as I'm doing those four things, I'm in perfect health, and that's really all you need. Yeah.
Yes. Wow. Did you have a moment like I know when I experienced healing on carnivore diet, I had a moment that I was like, really, all this time, all of this suffering, it was meat the whole time. If I would have just ate meat, like in the story, all of those tears and screaming and thinking I was cursed. And the answer was, food I can buy at the grocery store.
Yeah. No, it's really fascinating. I think it's kind of it's kind of weird that uh, there's these solutions here in plain sight. Like I'm reading this, like as a metaphor, an analogy. Like I'm reading this book right now called Dirt to Soil by this author called Gabe Brown, who is a holistic farmer, a regenerative agricultural farmer in North Dakota. And basically, it's the same sort of parallel with meat. I mean, like it's this paradigm where we think that it's bad for us, but it's actually healing us, and it's there the whole time in plain sight, but no one knows how powerful it is. And so it's the same thing with regenerative agriculture. It's like this, like, and I'm getting into regenerative agriculture right now because a lot of people who say are vegetarian or vegan are saying how I've got comments online saying, why are you just eating meat? I mean, yes, your health is improved, but don't you care for the planet? I mean, how much is your life worth, really? And when you're killing all of these animals all the time, and the 40% of deforestation is caused by the meat industry, and 14.5% of greenhouse emissions is caused by the meat industry, and you're contributing that, and your footprint is massive. So this is why I'm getting into regenerative agriculture, because every single time I eat meat, it's always grass fed. And like in terms of sentience of the animal, you're right. I'm taking away the life of an animal, but I, like the native Indians, I really have this respect for the animal, and I only take what I eat. I'm not going to waste food. I mean, there's a massive food wastage around the world, where a third of all food, I think in the US alone, is just being put into landfill and put into as waste and thrown away. So I've got this massive, like when I was eating, for example, a heart, uh, I was eating a cow heart, and it was just so vivid in front of me for the first time that, like, when you eat muscle meat, for example, it's kind of, you're kind of desensitized to it because you're used to it your whole life, there being on the plate. But when you see a physical heart in front of you, it kind of shocks you. And I remember feeling very emotional when I was eating. Like I was thinking, like, I'm so grateful for this animal that it died for me. Like, wow, animal
Mm-hmm.
died, and I'm consuming it so that I can survive in this beautiful cycle of life. And so, like, I'm not like detached from the fact that this animal died. I'm very aware that it died, and I'm so grateful that my life can continue. That because I've taken its life, and I'm consuming its life energy in the form of meat. Um, so that aside, I can't really have an argument for that. But in terms of, a lot of people are saying to me, yeah, what about your global footprint? And I say, that is completely unfounded. I mean, yes, that 40% of deforestation happens because of the beef industry, but this is because this is not happening, say, in the US. In the US, this is happening in Brazil because of poor management. In the US, there's hundreds of thousands of acres which are fallow, which means it's unusable. And bison has been roaming the America for thousands and thousands of years, and so it's part of the land. And the only way to actually rehabilitate these hundreds of thousands of acres of land that's unusable, literally can't be used for anything else, is to put cows on there, and that they can graze. And the moment they graze, they actually revitalize the soil. And this is what regenerative agriculture is all about. I mean, there's a biologist on who does a famous TED talk, really amazing, which went viral, and his name is Alan Savory, and he talks about how livestock and cows have been vilified for the longest time. Like he says, all these scientists believe that having cows on the land, they assumed it caused desertification. And so this is why we have to remove the cows from the land. And the cows are the reason for all of the greenhouse emissions and 14.5% of carbon dioxide being released. And it's the cow's fault. And so what he did was he removed all the cows from this land in Africa, in these protected areas. And then it was still being desertified. The land it wasn't healing. And so he said, oh, then it's the elephants. And so he ended up asking the government to shoot 40,000 elephants. And it still was desertified. And finally from this, he said, I'm so ashamed that I had to do that, but now I know. And I said, I'm actually committing my life to protecting these species. It's actually not the cow's fault. It's our fault for thinking it's the cows in the first place, because the grass, the land, the soil needs the cows just as much as the cows need the grass and the soil. It's symbiotic, you see, and this is what regenerative agriculture is about. And it's amazing. These people who talk about greenhouse gases and how carbon dioxide is like 14.5% of all emissions is caused by cows. In terms of global warming, like I forget who said it, but these scientists are saying if we stop emissions today, it still won't be enough to sort of reduce. If we stopped all greenhouse emissions today, like all the factories stopped today, it won't be enough for the greenhouse emissions to reduce prior to the industrial era, say, like for temperatures to settle again. What we need is carbon sinks. And actually, the one way to do it, the actual fastest way to do it, to create carbon sinks, is to have cows grazing the land in regenerative agriculture. Because when they eat the grass, the fastest way for and I'm going to try to say this as concisely as I can, and because I don't want to talk too long about it, but actually, when the cows eat the grass, it's just like when you're working out and your body's stressed. When the grass is stressed, it actually grows faster. And basically all trees and all plants is basically carbon being stored. And so this grass sucks carbon out of the atmosphere and stores it in the dirt. And so what you end up having is 3.5 pounds of carbon being sequestered in the soil per pound of meat that you're producing. And so by eating meat that is grass-fed, not grain-fed and factory-farmed, because that is terrible, I'm not arguing that, but grass-fed meat, if you're eating that, you're actually contributing to saving the planet. And not just that, there's a whole wealth of health benefits. Like 1 in 5 people have autoimmune diseases, most likely because of this reason, because they're spraying herbicides and glyphosate and all of this terrible things, and everything's factory farmed, and all the I mean, it's not natural for a cow to be in a small confinement just eating grains all the time. It doesn't eat grains. It's not its natural food source. Natural food source is grass. And so if you have healthy food, you have healthy people. You have healthy soil, you have healthy people. And so for the people out there who are I've got a lot of friends who are vegan and vegetarian, so all due respect, but I'm just sort of defending myself here. If they attack me saying, how dare you eat meat? What is your life worth in terms of the planet's health? I can't argue in terms of sentience of the animal, but in terms of actually protecting the planet, I'm eating grass-fed all the time, which is actually helping the planet and is the appropriate thing to do. It's actually helping.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You know your stuff. So, I mean, I pity the person who comes after you now, after you explaining all of that to me, because I've heard it before and I have like a general understanding of how that works, but you really broke that down beautifully. You did a great job. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people listening that, that's some good information for them too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because there's a misconception. A lot of people think that just eating meat means you're destroying the planet, and then you're being selfish because your carbon footprint's so large, and then on top of that, that you're hurting yourself and you're gonna get yourself heart disease. I mean, honestly, meat is a superfood, and it's something we should be producing more in the form of regenerative agriculture. not through factory farming, of course, but through this holistic management of land. Yeah. For those who don't know
Yeah.
about regenerative agriculture, I highly recommend it. Check out that Alan Savory TED talk. It's just amazing. It blows your mind.
Yes, I'm going to check that out with my kids because they need to learn about that. um, well, Bradley, I have one last question for you. If you could have a billboard um, in the busiest Melbourne highway interstate, what would you put on that billboard? What would you say to the world?
It'd have to be very simple. I mean, if it's a similar question to when people ask if you have one thing to say to the world, what would you say? I mean, if that was the case, the first thing I'd love to say is something profound, like enjoy every second, or like, be grateful for what you have. But like most people know that already, and I mean, like you can say it, but it really takes perhaps like a life-threatening experience or just an awakening within yourself to really appreciate life. I mean, it doesn't come from words on a billboard. It has to really come from yourself. Like, for example, I don't know, I had another whole topic, but I had a near-death experience like last year in a car accident. And after that, I mean, I was very grateful for life already, but like after that, I became very aware that even though I'm young, like I could really die at any time and I could die tomorrow. And so it really made me completely grateful for every single day that I have. And no amount of words on a billboard could tell me to enjoy life. It had to come from that awful experience, you see? I mean, even the 3 years that I've spent with my skin, like in a horrible condition where I was bedbound. I mean, it's such an interesting experience in a sense, because there was a period of time when I was bedbound before the accident where I was thinking my quality of life is awful. And I was talking to people saying, how am I supposed to survive for the next 60 years? Like a lot of people with eczema right now have awful quality of life, and they're lost and they don't know what to do because the medicine's failing them and there's no solutions and there's nowhere to go. The doctors are just recommending the same thing. And like, just to speak about it in first person, like if I was them, like what am I going to do? I'm just here in bed and I can't move. And every time I look at myself in the mirror, I hate the way I look. My skin's falling apart. I don't know if I'm going to find love. I don't know if anyone wants to talk to me. I just feel embarrassed. And you just sink into this hole of depression. And I mean, the suicide rate alone in cases of eczema that are severe is 36%, and 40% of eczema patients have a suicide ideation rate where they at least think about it, like seriously have it as an option, because it's just that debilitating. I mean, there's these scales that people use to measure the quality of life. I forget what it's called, but it's 0 to 1. And I remember reading about this through podcasts that I used to listen to when I was lying in bed and I couldn't move. I was listening to like these podcasts called Eczema Conquerors, who's a girl called Abby, who's a hero in the sense of giving people hope. And so I was listening to these podcasts, and so they have this scale of 0 to 1 of quality of life. People who have cancer, so for example, just to give you context, 0 is shocking, 1 is normal, and you're perfectly fine and healthy. So people who have cancer rated themselves at 0.3. People who have eczema also rated themselves at 0.3, and the doctors were baffled. They say, this is not cancer, this is just a skin condition, this is just a rash. Why are these people rating themselves so low? And that's sort of the fact that really woke up a lot of doctors who were researching this eczema. It's because it's so debilitating. It's not just a skin issue. You can't sleep, you can't move. Everywhere you go, people are commenting, you feel insecure, you feel terrible. And not just, I mean, feeling terrible is the least of your worries. You're constantly in pain, and not just like an average dull pain that's just there in the background. It's debilitating, chronic pain that is so hard to deal with that you literally feel like you're going insane. So in terms of the billboard, there was a period of time where I was going through this really dark moment of my life, I wasn't sure how long it was going to last, and I was stuck in this despair, and then I had a car accident, and so it hit me like, even though my life is awful in this current state, I still want to live. And that's why there's these podcasts, oh, not podcasts, this little vlog I was doing where I was filming myself in the sauna talking, and someone was asking me in a podcast, what makes you still so positive even though you were riddled with debilitating chronic illness? What makes you still say, I still care to live, and I'm trying to keep a positive mindset? And it really was that car accident, because I was in such a negative state. In my mindset was just, I don't know if I wanted to live. I was never suicidal, but there was moments where I thought the quality of life is so poor. I don't know how I'm going to live. And I never wanted to kill myself ever, but it's just like, it's so hard. I don't know how I'm going to survive the rest of my life, and I don't enjoy life anymore. That's how bad, that's my state of mind when I was in the last 3 years. But with the car accident, I was thinking, you know what? I still cherish life. I still appreciate what I have, even though it's awful. I'm still going to be positive. And so, yeah, no matter what I say on a billboard, it's never going to influence people, because they're just words at the end of the day. It has to come from your own unique experience. So, long story short, what I'd say on a billboard, I'd love to say something profound, but again, it has to come from the person, is my point. So I'd love to say something that's just thought-provoking. For example, does meat really cause cancer?
Yeah.
Because it cured my eczema. I don't know exactly. Like, does meat really cure cancer? And something succinct about like how powerful the superfood of meat is. It's something that changes the paradigm of people's ways of thinking. Because just to question the narrative, or question how people. There's so many people are just like believing that meat is this vilified, awful product that we should avoid and causes cancer. So just to question it in a public space, I mean, something maybe like this: I eat meat every day. It cured my incurable eczema. Why aren't you eating meat? Something like that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in my area in Atlanta, there's a lot of vegan propaganda everywhere you go, and there's a really busy highway, and there's a number of billboards like talking about stop eating meat, don't drink milk,
Honestly, really sickening, honestly, knowing how powerful meat is. I mean, as a testament, you can see it literally. I mean, the fortunate thing about eczema is that it's on the surface, so you can literally see everything that was terrible happening in my gut and my body. I mean, a lot of people who have illnesses like Michaela Peterson, you can't really see the difference because it's not on the surface. But with my eczema, it's it's black and white. You can see the difference. And so it's really insidious, honestly, sinister, that, I mean, like in the 70s, people who eat meat all the time, like people used to eat fat all the time. And on this podcast that I was having with this girl called Serena Carnivore, she was talking about how, I think, these cookies or Oreos, I think it was, that used to have fat in it, they would advertise saying, we no longer have fat in our Oreos. We replace it with sugar. Eat sugar, not fat. And that's exactly what you shouldn't be doing. You should actually be having fat, not sugar. And you can just see how in the 70s, there's these pictures of people, and obesity is just skyrocketing now. But before, everyone was lean and healthy. And now everyone, I don't know the exact statistic, but there's so many people who are just obese.
Yes. Yeah. And everybody's scratching their head like, oh, you don't know what went wrong.
Yeah. Honestly, it's the seed oils. It's all of the massive amount of sugar that's people eating, the diets. It's just awful. And not to mention all of the, GMO and all of the artificial foods that are being produced. I mean, this vegan fake foods is just on top of that. I mean, if you're a vegetarian and you're vegan and you're choosing to eat this, good on you, kudos to you. But you can't force people to change their diets and shame people uh, away from eating meat because of perhaps global warming, or perhaps because of the
Mhm.
deforestation of trees and the sentience of the animal. I mean, as I said before, I proved how it's actually not destroying the planet at all. In fact, it's healing the planet through regenerative agriculture. So all of this is honestly propaganda. And it's so
Yeah,
sinister
absolutely.
because I don't know if they have an agenda or whatever it is, but there's this massive thing where even in Australia, vegan advertisements everywhere, and there's constantly vilification of meat. Like, and then there's all these like mad cow's disease before. Now there's from Bali, there's this foot and mouth disease where they're literally culling thousands of cows that we can't consume, and so there's there's like a limitation of the amount of cows that are being produced now. I mean, of meat that's being able to be sold. And so, I mean, some people reach out to me. I mean, Sean Baker's always releasing these statements on how meat might become illegal in the future, and how he's saying that the World Economic Forum wants to have insects as food for the future as a
Hmm.
form of protein. Like, I don't know how true that is, but it's almost as if they're trying to get us off eating meat because of how bad it is for the planet, or which is again propaganda, or how bad it is for our bodies, which is again propaganda. um Really, it's the quickest way to heal yourself. If you want to be healed, if you want to be healthy, if you want to think clearly, if you want to be able to function throughout the whole day and not really need coffee because you don't, because for me, I don't have these spikes of energy that sugar provides, because I'm not under glucosis. I'm not eating much sugar. I'm under ketosis for the past
Hmm.
163 days. And so just eating meat, like, there's a baseline there. I don't really need coffee or anything to wake me up, because I'm constantly in this baseline state where I'm constantly energetic. Like, I'm rehearsing with my
Yeah.
musician friends, or I'm studying, and other people are like, do you guys need a break? Like, yeah, we need a break. I'm tired. And I'm thinking, oh, wow. Um, I probably would have been tired before, but now that I'm on the meat tired, like, I don't even get tired. Like, going to sleep, I'm still as
Yeah.
energetic as I was waking up. It's just a continuous level of energy. Uh, so, if you want to be in the prime form of your being, you have to eat meat. I mean, you don't have to, but it's an option that should be there, should be allowed to have.
Yes.
I feel like they're vilifying it so much to the point where I wouldn't be surprised if I don't know if they'll make it like, they'll never maybe ban it. I hope they don't ban it in the name of global warming or whatever. But I wouldn't be surprised if they raise the prices so much that it just becomes unaffordable.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's
Or if
happening
it
now.
was really, it was taxed, heavily taxed, I could see that happening. A meat
Yeah.
tax, which I don't know. To me, it's just, it's like you said, it's cruel for me to think about somebody doing that just because it saved my life. I know it saved my life. And so for someone to be like, yeah, well, it's going to cost you even more to stay healthy now to eat your meat. It's like them saying, well, you're going to have to start paying for oxygen like it's a utility. And if you can't afford
Right.
it, then, too bad.
Yeah.
Um, well, Bradley, this has been so awesome talking to you. I feel like we could talk for all the rest of your day and all the rest of my
Yeah.
night
I'd
because
love
we're
to
in
talk about that.
different time zones.
We'll keep it
But
short and
can you
sweet today.
tell everyone? Yeah, can you tell everyone where they can find you online?
Yeah, for sure. You can find me on Instagram. My handle is Bradley Marshall Official. So that's my private page. I mean, it's not private, it's open for everyone to see, but it's like my personal page in a sense. So I post videos there. I'm a musician primarily, and I recently got on the health train in the last 3 years, having this severe situation that I endured. So now I'm on the health train too. So that account is like a combination of both my music and my healing journey. So, but I also have two other accounts that I've made. One's primarily for my music, which like as I'm working as full-time as a musician, as well as like I've got other things on the side where I delve in. I've got as I said before, a degree in science, and I delve in academia because I find it so interesting. But at the moment, I'm working as a full-time teacher in music and performing, and as well as teaching a bit of maths. So in terms of so in professionally, I have that as a music Instagram that I give out to people, as it's kind of like my music portfolio, my music resume, if you will. And then I've also got a page called i.cured.my.eczema. So I cured my eczema with dots in between. So that's primarily talking about my healing journey. For those who don't want to hear the music and just want to stick to my healing journey. But if you want both, then just follow Bradley Marshall Official, which is my main Instagram account, and I post just everything about music and everything about me talking about my health. And I'm pretty sure that's the one that you follow already. So
Yes.
So that's
Awesome.
my Instagram. And I'm sure there's videos of me out there on YouTube and all that. I mean, I've got channels for my music, but mainly I'm on Instagram for my eczema healing journey.
Awesome. Well, that eczema healing journey is great news to the world, and I hope you keep sharing and keep inspiring people all over.
That's it for today. Until next time, stay meaty, stay strong, and stay inspired. Do you have a carnivore story to tell? Connect with me on Instagram at meet, MEAT, Mrs. MRS Grubs, GRUBS. I would love to interview you, and the world needs to hear your story and how meat heals. Thanks so much for watching and all your support. Bye-bye till next time.